City of Fayetteville for a regional park and additional 200 acres of green space. It's called Southwest, and unfortunately it went south. And so Chambers Bank ended up owning that 900 acres. But Chambers very generously honored that pledge and donated 200 plus acres to the City of Fayetteville for the regional park. And they also allowed Ozark off-road cyclists. How about all the Ozark off-road cyclists stand up here? I see. Okay, two of them. They built 8.5 miles of trails on Kessler. And it started out strictly mountain biking, but then other people have discovered it. And so now about 65% of the users are hikers. And then 10 or 15% are runners. We have people run the mountains. In fact, there's going to be a giant run, and you can see the poster about in November. And then outdoor education is a big part of this. And Dana, where is Dana? Yeah, Dana is with the Fayetteville school system, and we've had a few groups of students from Fayetteville, grade school and high school out, plus university groups. And we just a few days ago received a $2,500 grant from the National Park Service to help us develop that classroom, do the planning for it. So I'm very excited about that. Back to the scary trees, did you call it, Terry?
Yeah, scary woods.
Scary woods. I had heard that. And so I went to a fount of all knowledge named Joe Neal. Joe? And I said, Joe, can you tell me something about those trees? And he said, don't ask me, ask Dr. Staley. And so Dr. Staley and John Paul, where's John Paul? John Paul and Connor Green, Dr. Staley and Joe and I hiked, and I showed him the scary trees, which didn't scare him at all. And but he spied some chinkapin oaks down on a little bench that was hard to get to, and he said those would make a great thesis for the student of mine that wanted to look for a master's thesis. And but it would take $4,800 to do it, and the department had about 1,000. So I went to a couple of people that I thought might help. Hunter Haynes, where's Hunter? Hunter, right over here. Hunter is a consultant that works at Chambers Bank, and Bob Kopp at Fayetteville Natural Heritage. We had lunch at Ellis. Dr. Staley, he said what he needed. I think about a week we had the money. Also, I asked Patty Irwin. Patty's not here. Patty's the urban forester, and she said it's very worthwhile and fits right in our guidelines, but we don't have the money. And then she called later and said, wait, I found $2,500. So we've had a lot of help on that tree ring study. And so that graduate student that did the study is Alan Edmondson, and I would like Alan to come up and do his presentation. And I'll then like to cut this.
Thanks a lot, Frank. Give Frank another hand. He deserves it. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for having me tonight. I really appreciate it. As Frank was saying, Dr. Staley went out there and saw some things that kind of excited him. He saw some chinkapin oaks that he believed to be very old, as well as some post oaks that he believed to be very old. So we decided to do this project, and kind of where we started was we decided to come up with some research objectives. And so the objective was to locate and document the parcels of old growth on Mount Kessler, to establish 2 permanent study plots to gather forest ecology data that can be used as baseline conditions for an ecological site to monitor global change at a regional scale, use dendrochronology to reconstruct past climate in the area, and strengthen preservation efforts with this scientific research. so we started, the way we went about doing this is we essentially hiked the mountain, Dr. Staley and I, and we're basically hunting for old growth. And we have some indicators that we look for when we're hunting for old growth, just kind of cruising through the forest, doing visual forest surveys. One of the things we look for, this is a post-oak from one of our sites, and you see, I think you can probably see this, you can see how the tree has some lateral twisting. You see the bark. Let me see this. This right here. You look for that, and also the tree is kind of leaning. Just with old age, there's a couple things that they just characteristically do. We also look for canopies that aren't totally intact. This is also at one of our sites, and you notice this canopy isn't just a real pretty canopy. It's seen some hard times, has some battle scars, and so look for that as well when we're looking for old trees. Once again, more battle scars. You know, could have been an ice storm, could have been a windstorm. Who knows? With other trees coming down, knocking off major limbs off these trees, and so there's old trees throughout the mountain. But what we were looking for was intact parcels of old growth forest that there's more than a few just in a condensed area. And so we picked a site which we are going to call Site A, which is right here. And it's on the southeast side of the mountain. And that site is a post-oak glade. You see here, the reason why we think that these trees are older than the ones around them and that they got spared is these post oaks are growing in very poor soil conditions, and so they're growing very slow. And so one of our theories is that when the original logging came through the area, they saw this area, and it was a bunch of stunted post oaks that weren't of any timber value. And so we believe that this whole area was spared. As you can see, I said it was a glade. It's pretty open, which is very glade-like. You know, it's opening. We have some grasses, and there's understory, but mostly you get these grasses and lower shrubs in here. But very open, just a good, healthy-looking old-growth forest. And so what we did is we set up a grid system, and we installed it to be a semi-permanent, if not permanent, study site. And so we have 4 steel pins in each of these, or a steel pin in each of these corners. And then we set up our grid system, and it's 50 meters by 50 meters. As you can see, 25 grid squares by 2 meters by 2 meters each. And then also the orange circle in the middle is representing our 5-meter fixed radius plot that we use to sample the understory. So at each 4-corner intersection of these grid systems, we did a 5-meter radius plot and inventoried all the understory that we encountered. As far as the overstory, we went through and we identified every overstory tree, and we decided an overstory tree was a tree that was 10 centimeters in diameter at breast height. And so at Site A, we had 125 overstory trees. And as you can see here with the relative frequency, 57% were post oak, 31% were northern red oak, 6% were white oak, and another 4% were blackjack oak, and eastern red cedar and sugar maple both came in at 2%. For the understory, what we call understory trees were the trees that at least came up to breast height, but they were smaller than 10 centimeters. And just so you know, breast height is kind of a standard forestry measurement, but it's 1.4 meters off the ground. And so the understory for Site A, there's a lot of post oak. There's 50% post oak, 8% red cedar, 50% northern red oak, 8% eastern red cedar, 8% post oak, 7% cedar elm, 6% blackjack oak, 6% serviceberry, 6% white oak, 4% black locust, 2% black oak, and the rest were 1%. And we have black cherry, black hickory, and winged elm. So after we inventoried all these trees, when we inventoried them, we speciated them, obviously. We recorded their diameter, breast height, and we assigned them a number. We then went back through at the post oak site and recorded every post oak tree at the site to get age and climate data. This is a photograph of an old post oak site, and the estimated age of the tree is over 300 years. And actually, that is the core that I have back there on the table that y'all can take a look at when we're all done here. And so, we core the tree, we extract the core, and then we're left with this. Well, not exactly this. We're left with the raw wood out in the field, and we let it dry, we glue it to core mount, and then we sand it with increasingly finer sandpaper to create a polished surface that we can look at under a microscope. And so this is the same core that you see back there, and the inner ring is 1724, but we didn't quite hit the pith. And we recorded at breast height, so we estimate this tree to be over 300 years old. And the thing about dendrochronology is it doesn't stop by any means at just getting the age of the tree. And we can tell so much about the tree with this information. We can say, it's hard to see here, but say this year right here as opposed to this time in here, we have a fat ring as opposed to a skinny ring. And a fat ring would indicate a lot of precipitation, a good healthy year, the tree was growing very well. The thin ring would suggest that it was a drought year, drier conditions, the tree wasn't growing very well. And so what we do is at the site we get all these together and we average the data to get a climate signal that's representative of this area. And it's more than just counting the rings back in time. We actually do what's called cross dating, and it's what it is, it's pattern matching. And so we'll have these climate signals from these trees, and you'll put a few of them in a row together, and you can line them up because you'll see these patterns. And so the reason why this is important is because some years during drought years, if it's a really bad drought year, these trees won't put on a ring at all. And so if you're just counting back in time and you don't count that ring because you don't see it, then it will throw everything off. So cross dating is a way of basically cross-checking ourselves to make sure that we're accurate. And because of this, the preciseness that we were able to attain, dendrochronology is the most precise geologic dating. For the second site, we actually entered from the Rock City Trailhead. And it is tagged with chink pinnos. And so when we were looking at it, going through the woods looking for indications of older trees, this is one where the size, in some cases, is dictating the age. And I guess I haven't touched on that, but one thing we have noticed is that a large tree does not necessarily mean an old tree. Depending on the growing conditions, depending on the species, depending on the soil type, the water availability, and all types of different factors, sometimes trees are just small. Terry was talking about the scary trees up on top of the mountain. Those are post oaks, and we have cored some of those, and the ones that we've cored are no greater than 20 centimeters in diameter, but they have 250 rings on them, if you can imagine that. And so, in this case, the chinkapin are pretty fat and happy because chinkapin oak prefer and basically have to have calcareous soil to survive. And so we found these guys hanging out on a limestone escarpment. And like I said, pretty fat and happy. But the reason why we think that chinkapin oak, or these chinkapin oak were not cut down is because they have a contorted growth form. Just naturally, they grow really kind of curvy, which you can't really see in the last two, but this one does a pretty good job of simplifying that. So, kind of the same story. We located this area of intact old growth forest. We decided this was a good spot for making another study area. And so, Site B on the northwest side of the mountain. And as I said, chinkapin oak love calcareous soil and love the limestone. And as you can see here, this chinkapin oak is straight up growing right out of blocks of limestone. It does not bother them at all. In fact, they love it. As I said, it's a chinkapin oak escarpment, so we have, it's a limestone escarpment, so we have all these limestone outcroppings and exposures. And if you'll notice here, the understory there's significantly more of an understory. It's kind of a denser understory. It's not glade like the last spot. And also the nutrients in the soil are able to support more plant life than in Site A, which was the glade with poor rocky soil, nutrient-rich, or nutrient-poor soil. And so you can see the understory here is much more dense than Site A. So once again, we set up this grid system a little differently, but only because the way that the chinkapin escarpment kind of goes along the hillside there. I mean, if we went the other way, we would drop off the cliff essentially. And so it's right where the Rock City Trail comes through there. And so I decided to set it about a meter off the trail, so the understory kind of wouldn't be affected by any maintenance, or hopefully wouldn't be affected by any maintenance that the trail people were doing. And so we set up this one, and it's 20 meters by 100 meters. Kind of the same song and dance here. It's like, once again, the 5-meter radius plot to sample the understory. And we once again inventoried all the overstory trees, and we speciated them, measured DBH, and gave them assigned them an ID number. So at Site B we had 122 overstory trees, and so 66% were sugar maple, which when you get in there, it's a bit deceiving because all the sugar maple, the majority of the sugar maple are smaller trees, and then you have these ginormous chinkapin oak just kind of towering over everything. And so it does give the illusion that there's more chinkapin oak in there. So 66% sugar maple, 17% chinkapin oak, 6% eastern red cedar, 2% shadbark hickory, 2% pignut hickory, and 2% post oak, and the rest were 1%. And we also have black hickory, mocker nut hickory, red oak, gum mammalia, and serviceberry. And in the understory, once again, the understory tree was up to breast height, but less than 10 centimeters in diameter. And these results were pretty interesting. We had the eastern red cedar coming in at the top of the understory with 34%. We then have northern red oak at 28%, Carolina buckthorn at 18%, sugar maple at 13%, mockernut hickory at 2%, shadbark hickory at 2%, and sugarberry at 2%. And the rest are 1%. And we also have black hickory, red hickory, chinkapin oak, and winged elm. This is the cross section from just outside the Site B, which is the Chieftain, and it was a down log across the trail that we cut a cross section of, and I sanded it and kind of polished it up, and we ring counted it. That's all we've done so far, but we ring counted it at 216 years. So, you know, we don't know when it died exactly, but it has 216 years on it, which we will later cross-date with our other age data. So, conclusions. Old-growth forest parcels have survived in multiple areas on Mount Kessler. Preliminary age data shows trees in the 200 to 300 age class. Old growth on Mount Kessler is a unique and valuable resource for studying old-growth forest dynamics as well as reconstructing past climates. Mount Kessler is an invaluable natural resource that our community should protect and preserve. The age analysis is underway. A complete comprehensive analysis to be included in my master's thesis, which is with a tentative completion date of May 2014. Once again, I'd like to thank everybody. Thanks a lot, Frank Sharp with Mount Kessler Greenways, Bob Koch with Fayetteville Natural Heritage Association, Patty Irwin from the Arkansas Forestry Commission, Dr. David Staley, my advisor from the University of Arkansas Treating Laboratory, Tim Rogers, who's a field botanist, and I hired as an assistant to do some of the plant identification, and Terry Lane for having me tonight with the Northwest Arkansas Land Trust.
Can we ask questions?
Yeah, sure.
I have a question for you. I
Yes,
noticed
sir.
in the Site B analysis you had, speciation, you had red oak. And then other places you had northern red oak. And I wondered if you have encountered southern red oak.
As far as we know, we've only encountered northern red oak. And if it said red oak over there, that would be a typographic error on my part.
What about black oak?
There is black jack oak up there that we've encountered.
Crooked, very tiny.
Sure.
Black oak?
Yeah. I'm not sure if we... No, I don't believe we encountered that. We have some blackjack. Do you know about some black oak up there?
Well, I thought there was
Yeah. Mr. Cobb?
In your slide for the understory of Site B, you don't have to go back to it, but you had very little chinkapin oak.
Oh, yeah, that is something I wanted to talk about, yeah. Thank
Next
you.
to nothing there.
Thank you.
Any reasons why?
Well, we have a few theories, but it was interesting. In our understory survey of Site B, we only found one chinkapin oak in the understory, which is troubling and, you know, suggests that chinkapin oak is not regenerating at a rate that is able to maintain dominance or co-dominance. And one of our theories is possibly grazing and foraging. There used to be pigs and cattle that were run on the mountain, and then also the whitetail population has exploded, you know. And the other thing about chinkapin oaks is the acorns that they produce are the sweetest and most desirable of all the oaks. And so there's a possibility that everybody's just grubbing down on them. Yes, sir.
Have you seen many acorns on the trees at all this fall?
I've seen some on the ground.
On the ground?
Sure.
Are both of these areas in the easement?
The
Conservation easement?
Site A and Site B is just right outside of it. It's actually on the Steele's land.
Yeah, you know, one of the things that was that the Ozark National Forest has said about trying to regenerate the oak forest, there is that they cite the lack of fire, regular wildfire.
Sure.
That the growing space that the historically dominant trees normally would occupy has been taken over by other species. What's the possibility of that problem on Kessler, that the conditions that allow that original forest to grow, that are now the big Chinkapin oaks, that reproduction has been suppressed?
So due to fire suppression, that the regeneration has been suppressed because other species that are more adapted can come in and basically shade them out.
Yeah, the species that thrive in the lack of fire,
Right.
Occupy all the growing space, so the acorns never really get a chance to develop, because it looks like from your data that there's no replacement stand for this old Chinkapin oak stand. There's no, I mean, it doesn't look like there's any replacement.
Right, yeah.
Is that your impression?
Well, it definitely seems like it's not regenerating, and I mean, like I said, we only had one Chinkapin oak in our, now, notice, that you noted that, you know, when we were taking our understory vegetation, we did not do 100% sampling like we did with the overstory. We did, what was supposed to be a representative sample by doing the 5 meter fixed radius plots. So, I mean.
So it could be somewhere else.
Yeah, it could be, but, I mean, odds are, I mean, it's not looking good for the long term, the future of the Chinkapin. I mean, it's.
That's efficient enough sampling.
Yeah,
Really,
you think so?
yeah. There used to be a lot of yellowwood up there too, and it's got shaded out.
Yeah.
It always grew on cliffside.
Yeah, there's definitely some interesting forest dynamics that, you know, it's neat that we're able to, you know, kind of record the baseline, and it'll be interesting to see where we go from here, you know. I would really, you know, as a lot of y'all would like to see it preserved, you know, as an outdoor classroom and laboratory and as a research area, because I think we can learn a lot about it, and I think it's important.
Looks like we better find out, not your master's thesis, but maybe the next one, why there's no replacement stand of the Chinkapin oak.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's something we're looking to address, but I don't know that we can, we're gonna try to tackle it.
You're gonna stick around for a PhD?
I'm not sure. I gotta make it through the master's program first. Yes, sir, Dr. James.
Did you encounter that pond up there?
Yes,
Was it in one of your study areas?
it is close to the study area. Are you talking about the one right on top? Or
Yeah, the ridgetop pond that was
Yeah.
full of water even during the drought years. Now,
Right.
that's always puzzled me. I've never seen it anything but full of water.
We did not choose that area on top as a study site. It does have some old growth post oak, but that area, you know, there's an actual road that goes up in there, and there's been all types of clearing, so it's kind of been disturbed more than we wanted to kind of study that area. So we did some initial sampling just to get kind of some age data to get a feel for it, but we decided that it was better to do it in areas that were less impacted.
I used to camp out with my kids up there.
That's a good spot for
We're
it.
not hearing bullfrogs calling.
I imagine you wouldn't get much sleep.
Yeah.
Mr. Sharp.